Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm just going to teach you how to make one simple pulley. Okay, and this is one of the great inventions of human beings, a pulley. It's made our life so much easier. It is a little bit more like carpentry work. This is really not sculpting. It's a physics class about the conservation of effort and the formulas that go along with that. And so here you go. This is a pulley that we made out of wood. You're going to need some rope. You'll need some of these hooks. Now they can be the closed-end hook like I have here, or it can have one that's just got an angle to it like that. I'm going to go ahead and use 3/4 inch pine, and I've went ahead and prepared 3 squares already. First thing you have to do is to find the center of each one of these squares. Okay, and you make a mark, and you go from the other corner to the other corner, and you make a mark. Okay, and so here is your center. And that's where we'll be drilling a hole. So you want to mark all 3 of these that way. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a compass. You want to make it as large as it'll fit on one of these little square boards here. Those 2 are about 5 3/8 of an inch in diameter. So this one's going to be smaller. It's just basically enough to keep the rope from slipping off. The next step then, after you've got your circles marked, your center's marked, your circle's marked, then of course is to cut out the circle. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the corners that I'm going to cut off first. So now we're all marked out. We'll get our little handy little saw out. So we've got octagon shape here. The next step would be to cut each one of these smaller corners off. And we can do it with a saw, or we can do it with a rasp. Now the rasp will take a little bit more time. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is simply use the saw. And it might be a little bit faster, but maybe not. Yeah, that was pretty fast. And now simply using the rasp to get it fully round. Now there's something really kind of oddly satisfying about actually starting with a square and using your saws to slowly make this round shape. So you've done that. You've created the wheel. Can you imagine how many thousands of years ago the wheel was created? What a great invention, huh? Now, I don't think I mentioned it, but I think it's good to mention that when you're marking these marks and they're cutting their cuts, you need to stay outside of the pencil line. If you go on the inside, it's going to become wobbly and not a true circle. You can always trim it down, but you can never make it grow back out again. Now we've got it pretty round. And one more to go. And we'll put these all together. So now we have our 3 pieces round. They're going to sandwich together like this. And that will create the main part of our pulley. Okay. So the next step would be to go ahead and drill the centers of these holes out. So this is what's known as a brace and a bit. This is the brace, and this is our bit that we're going to use in here. And if you don't have any clamps nearby, or you don't have the right type of clamp, you can simply use a nail to temporarily hold it in place. Maybe 2 nails, 1 on each side. Okay, now it's not moving. And I'll go ahead and do our hole here, get it right started where it was. And there it is. Okay, so that was using the brace and the bit and the 2 nails to hold it in. Now I'm going to show you how you can do it if you have some clamps. I'm going to simply clamp it to the table right here. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and do the same process again without nails. This time we're just using the clamps. Okay, and now I'm feeling myself getting into the woodworking board. So you don't want to go too deep, you'll end up cutting your table. And there's our hole. Now the question is, will this fit through here? Well, what do you know? Barely fits through. Might need a little bit of help. There we go. Okay, and then so we're going to go ahead and put this middle one on. We're just checking to make sure the holes are big enough and that we don't need to do any adjustment. And they all fit on there pretty well. So you see what we got. Now we're going to go ahead and take it off. And we're going to get glue ready. And we're going to glue these three together. We're just going to put this on temporarily while we nail it together. Now we're going to simply nail these pieces together like a sandwich. Okay, there we go. Now it's on. But we're going to go through it a couple times so it'll come off easier. Okay, so we have the main part of the pulley built here. You see the holes lining up very nicely. You can see from turning it that it's pretty symmetrical. Looks pretty good to me. Okay, and so I'll go ahead and take it apart and let it dry. So the next step is to build the frame. With this one I use plywood and some other scrap wood that I found around the shop here. I always have scrap wood. But in this case I went ahead and got a decent piece of pine here to make this really beautiful and functional. I've already measured out how long this is going to be. In this case, it's 10 inches from end to end. So I'm going to go ahead and start cut these guys off. Okay, so I went ahead and I measured between the length to find the center both ways. Now I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process of drilling the hole with the brace and bit. This bolt is going to be long enough that it'll go through easily. So now we're going to go ahead and put it together. You know, I was pretty careful with the glue. I didn't want too much glue sticking out. But I'm not happy with just 2 nails here. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 more nails on this side just to make sure that this stays together in case it ever is really used to lift a heavy weight. Okay, that's nice and tight. We're going to go ahead and put on one of the nuts onto the bolt, very first thing. And now we're going to put a washer on. Next thing we'll do is go through our frame here. Now we're going to put another washer on. And now we're going to go ahead and put our wheel on. Okay, about like that. I'm going to put another washer on. And we're going to put the other side of this frame on. Like that. And we're going to put one more washer on. And then we're going to go ahead and put another nut on. Okay, now we're not going to make these too tight because remember we want this wheel to be able to turn. We don't want the axle to turn, but we want the wheel to turn. So it'll take a little while for it to get worn in, but those washers keep it from binding, hopefully. The last thing, I'm going to put a second nut on. This will keep this nut from falling out. There. Okay, now. So the next step then would be to measure how long this end piece is going to have to be. So it's going to be 4 inches long. We can always make it smaller, but we can never make it bigger. So we're going to go ahead and cut 2 pieces 4 inches long. All we're going to do now is we're going to attach this to here, attach this down here, and we'll put in our little hook, and basically we're just about done here. So now I'm going to use a little bit of glue. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this on here, just like that, line it all up. Now we're going to repeat that same process on this other end. Now I'm going to take my rasp and clean up that edge a little bit. So we're looking good so far. Yep. Now the next step is I'm going to find the center of this board here. And that will find a center on a rectangle or a square. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my little handy drill out. We'll go ahead and put this guy in and get it going. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So you see this is this is how the pulley is going to work. One side you're going to have the load, and the other side you're going to be pulling. And so if you pull this down 1 meter, your load will raise up 1 meter. Now when you start combining pulleys together, that's when you may pull 1 meter, and you've got 2 pulleys, then your load is going to go up 1/2 of a meter. So it makes it much easier to pull the load up, but it goes a shorter distance. I think that, if you don't have a store nearby, but you have a saw, you can definitely make your own pulleys. Just be creative and make it out of nothing. You're only limited by your own imagination. You start with a few bits and parts, and the next thing you know, you have something that's really functional. If I need a pulley, I know I can make one. Okay, well, thanks for watching again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.